Welcome to Tokyo Game Life, a Tokyo-based video game podcast focusing on Nintendo and gaming culture in Japan's capital. Your host Mono here to bring you a slice of gaming life from Tokyo. We have a big game section today as Source Gaming's Joshua Goldie returns as we look at Stray Children from Onion Games, the follow-up to the cult classic Moon. We discuss this surprising genre shift, the one-of-a-kind battle system, and why there's no other game like it. And I look at Masahiro Sakurai's amazing Kirby Air Riders, plus the Japanese indie action game Sonokuni. In the feature, I take you inside the Final Fantasy IX 25th anniversary exhibit happening right now in Tokyo, filled with art, dev documents, and of course, plushies. Let's get into the games with Joshua Goldie and Stray Children. Today in the game section, we are looking at Stray Children, an offbeat JRPG from Onion Games. Joining me to chat all about it is a special guest. So guest, please introduce yourself.
I'm back. It's me, Nintendex, the Nintendo Chronicler, Josh, whatever you want to call me. I'm so undecisive over what name I want to go on online anymore. So do I use my real name? Do I use my fake name? Do I use my channel name? What's going on?
Yeah, I think on the first episode you appeared, you were credited as Joshua Nintendex Goldie. But then ever since then, I just called you Joshua Goldie. So I can change the credit if you want, but...
Make it longer, like I'm an aristocrat from Europe, adding more names on.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining me yet again. Anytime there's some weird Japanese game, I wonder, did anyone else play this? And the answer is always, yes, Joshua played this. And since earlier this year we talked about Moon Remix RPG Adventure, you got to come back and talk about this. So give everyone the rundown. What is Stray Children?
So, Stray Children is the newest game by Onion Games, which is the company formed by Yoshiro Kimura. Yeah, so it's a new game by his studio, and he's most well known for working on games like Tulip, Rule of Roses, and Moon. And when they released Moon on Nintendo Switch, the first English release, it did really, really well. And it got him motivated to create a new RPG, and that new RPG is this one, Stray Children. And Moon's not quite an RPG. In fact, it's very much designed to be an anti-RPG, going over and mixing up all of the usual conventions of the genre that Dragon Quest put forward. But Stray Children's a bit more RPG orientated, and that's in part because the real inspiration behind this game is Undertale. Kimura has said that it was actually not just Moon's success that inspired this game, but also Toby Fox's own interviews where Toby Fox said that Moon inspired Undertale.
Yes.
After seeing how big Undertale got, that sort of like inspired Kimura to then go, oh, maybe I can do a big RPG again. Maybe there is people who want to see that. And so him and his little team got together and they were like, let's do it. Let's make a game bigger than we've ever made before. And that's what Stray Children is.
Yeah, it hit Japan late last December on Switch and took nearly a year for it to be localized. So a very old school localization schedule. But the English localization also lines up with the Steam release. And as you mentioned, it is from Onion Games, who really is the last vestige of Love to Leak, the developers of Moon, UFO, and LOL. There's no skip, there's no punchline, there's not even Vanpool anymore. So Onion Games is holding down the fort for fans of that brand of games. And Onion Games has several Love to Leak staff members, most notably Yoshiro Kimura, who you mentioned, who co-designed and co-wrote Moon. And he also worked on many other games. And Stray Children was sort of pitched, or they kind of marketed as the spiritual successor to Moon, despite being a different genre. It's a little ironic because going into Moon, I thought it would be a JRPG, but it was an adventure game. And going into Stray Children, I thought it would be an adventure game, but it's a JRPG.
I had the exact same mindset going into this.
Yes. So what do you think about making the successor to Moon a completely different genre?
I think it's the right thing to do. Like, they're obviously, because this is a successor, but it's not a sequel, there's obvious parallels to Moon right at the start. The whole prologue section is just one big parody of Moon, referencing the fact that it has been like 2 decades since that game came out, even more than 2 decades in fact. But I think it's the better thing to do, especially to make Stray Children maybe a bit more palatable for wider audiences. actually having some action and combat, because that's the thing that Moon obviously lacked, and it did so on purpose, but that also made it a bit more of a niche experience for a lot of people. But actually having combat encounters and some danger and the ability to actually die that's not just starving, like in Moon, just makes it a bit more standard. That all of the millions of people who played and enjoyed games like Undertale and Deltarune, Stray Children wants to reach that audience. And so making it similar in that regard in the combat department, both in how you dodge attacks and how you deal with enemies, makes total sense.
Yeah, that's a good observation. I didn't really think about, they're trying to get more people. Yeah, more people played Undertale than Moon. So they're trying to go for the Undertale audience. And again, while this is often pitched as the spiritual successor to Moon, it kind of is Moon too. Light spoilers, but there are many, many callbacks to Moon. And characters who look exactly the same as in Moon also appear. Were you surprised about just how strong the connection to Moon was?
I wasn't that surprised, because I had gone into this with the mindset that this was essentially a successor to Moon. I was a bit surprised right at the start when you enter the beginning area, and I'm like, oh, this is just the Moon Town.
Yes.
These are the same slimes from Moon. This is the exact same layout, except now my grandma's house is the Demon King's castle. So like there was like a lot of little surprises in how they twisted that. I think the rest of it was all stuff that I was like, yeah, this is very Moon, but I also think this is just his style. This is just Onion Games' style. In particular, the fourth world, which is the Mushroom Kingdom.
Oh, yeah.
is like just ripped straight out of Moon.
Yes.
With the almost identical puzzles and weird psychedelic things that happen. I saw it and I was like, yeah, he just likes doing this stuff, doesn't he?
Yeah, the first scene, you wake up, you go to a train station, and then, like Moon, you are transported into a video game. You end up in the castle town from Moon. Like, it is exactly the same, and the quote-unquote hero looks the same. I very much was like, what? But it really does answer the question, who owns the Moon IP? It is Onion Games. They didn't have to license it when they released Moon years ago. And then we were quickly shuffled off into some new environments, albeit there are definitely some places that harken back to Moon, like the Mushroom Forest. But the game also has another big influence, which is Undertale. It is heavily inspired by Undertale, which is, yes, we've come full circle. It goes Moon, Undertale, back to Stray Children. So let's get into the game's most unique and perhaps, I guess, controversial element, which is the battle system. Can you give us a brief overview on how the battles work, and what did you think of the system overall?
So I've described this game as Undertale for masochists, because the combat system is very much the same as Undertale's. You have the option to attack or talk to the opponent, or use an item or run away. If you attack the opponent, it's a simple time-based button press. Like in Undertale, it's a line where you have to press at the right time, and this is like a spinner. But if you do the talk command, then you pick from a list of options and you can talk to your enemy. And if you do that a few times in a match, eventually the enemy will sort of pacify, and you have the option to spare them or use open sesame, as it's called in this game. On paper, it sounds the exact same as Undertale. The difference is in the details, because Stray Children is significantly more complicated in how it wants you to pacify your opponents. Undertale will give you like a check option and then maybe 2 or 3 dialogue choices, possibly more if there's a boss. Most casual enemies have 2 or 3, and usually one of those is always wrong, one of those is always right. Maybe you'll need a second one where you have to go back and forth between 2 options, and it's generally very well telegraphed. In Stray Children, there's pretty much always 6 options, and you have no idea whether or not you need to press the same option multiple times and ignore all the others, whether you need to press them all in a very specific order, whether you have to go back and forth between 2 options. It's far more of a riddle in Stray Children to figure out what to do. But as reflective of that, unlike Undertale, where you spare an enemy but then could encounter it again, once you've spared an enemy in Stray Children, it's gone forever. You never encounter that, which makes every encounter feel more like a puzzle boss rather than an actual JRPG enemy encounter. If you kill them in Stray Children, they do come back and you get experience. You can just treat it like a regular RPG, although the game tallies how many times you've killed an enemy, which is interesting. That's the core concept behind the battle system. When enemies attack as well, it's the same as Undertale, which is why I didn't really bring it up before. It's just a bullet hell, for the most part. Some of them are pretty fun, actually. Some of them are like parodies of games.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's a Frogger boss, there's a Metal Gear boss, there's a Pac-Man enemy, there's a Space Invaders enemy. They've leaned heavily into parodying other games with some of their enemies. But it's all like a shmup in that regard.
Yeah, it really is very similar to Undertale's battle system, where you have an attack you need to time, or you can choose to pacify the enemy in a non-violent way. But in Undertale, you just select the spare menu option over and over again. But here you need to select the dialogue options in a specific pattern, and then they will ascend instead of die. So if you played Undertale, you immediately think, well, this game has a genocide and a pacifist run. Yet that's not true, in that the ending of the game is not affected by how many you killed or saved. Slight spoilers, but you do experience something different near the end of the game that changes based on how many you saved. But I would say it's fairly minor, although I did love it, what they did with it. I can't lie. I thought what they did was very cool. So what do you think about this deviation from Undertale's genocide and pacifist style playthroughs? Or should we just not go into the game with those preconceived notions?
Yeah, so the way I have been saying it to people, and I said it in my video of this game, so I played through Stray Children twice, and I played through Stray Children before it came out. I got it under embargo. And I actually, because there's a lot about this game that really bugs me and my way of playing. Like, I'm a completionist. I like to go for everything. I went into this game realizing it was like Undertale, and was like, oh, I want to pacify everyone. And this game is filled with points of no return. Which, I don't know what your thoughts on that are, but for me, I was like, what do you mean I can't go back? I hope I can go back later on. I didn't explore everywhere. What's happening? What did you think on that part, actually?
Well, yeah, the game's format is very linear. It's not like Moon, where Moon was basically like an open world game where you just go wherever you want. Here it is a very traditional linear JRPG, but imagine if you didn't have fast travel. Your shelf it off is Kingdom 1, Kingdom 2, Kingdom 3. And you really can't go back. And again, slight spoilers. If you are trying to pacify every single creature, there's items in the first section of the game, not even the first world, like the first, I don't know,
prologue.
Prologue, yes. Of course, since I'm fairly fresh from playing Moon, I played Moon last year. So when I was in the Moon Town, I kind of knew like where things were. And I knew like where I should go. I found like the dirty bra and I found the fishing rod, but I didn't expect those to be important later on. And many people did not find those. So I've definitely seen a lot of criticisms. And I have been seeing people kind of pass your video around. I've seen your video like on different forums and on Reddit, because they're saying, oh, this is proof for the ending and how you need to play the game. So yeah, it is very unorthodox. I didn't really mind it because I just think the game is kind of immediately very different from Moon. You understand that, okay, this is not a Love to Leak style game, or like
actually, we traditionally think of it.
Yeah. In Japanese, they often refer to these Love to Leaks. I tried the coin Love to Like, maybe our last episode, but I think other people also came up with that Love to Like name. But I noticed in Japanese, they like to call them love delivery games. Games like Moon or Tulip or Chibi Robo, which I think is a really good name for this type of genre.
I think that's a really good name for this as well, actually. I quite like that.
I didn't mind the points of no returns, but I do understand the frustrations, and especially since, Undertale did wire our brain to think you need to do 100% kill everyone or pacify everyone if you want a very distinct ending. But Stray Children is not like that, yet it's so heavily inspired by Undertale.
The way I've been saying it in my video and all this, the sort of conclusion I came to is that you should go into Stray Children as blind as possible and just enjoy it and have a good time, not worry about saving everyone or solving every puzzle on your first playthrough. But it's really clear to me that this game sort of intends for players to at least go through it a second time. Based on various factors towards the end, it seems like the developers intended for at least 2 loops through the game. A first loop where you just go through it and everything is a brand new experience, and then the second loop where you have all of your knowledge now from the first time round. You know which orders you managed to spare, you know which orders you couldn't figure out how to spare, and you now know how the game works and where to explore. And then it's on a second playthrough that you can actually attempt to go for 100%. That was my sort of conclusion. I think when you get to that point, you start to have a much better time, because the way my emotions with this game was a massive roller coaster. Like, I was having a great time. Then I realized when I got to the second world that I was like points of no return. And then I started getting a little worried. I got to the third world and I quite literally emailed the developers asking them if it was possible for me to go back to previous levels, or should I just restart the game from scratch. They told me that I should just keep going forward and not worry about it. And then I got to the fourth boss, and I really stressed out about the fourth boss. So that was the first time where I couldn't find the item required to have a conversation with the boss. Because the one difference that bosses have over the others is that they all have a special treasure that you need to find beforehand to actually do the pacify version of that encounter. And I couldn't find his. And I actually ended up killing him, and I felt so terrible I I didn't save. I went back and I thoroughly searched, and I eventually found the item. But then the mirror labyrinth in the fifth world completely broke me. Like, I spent a good 2 to 3 hours exploring that. That's by far the worst part of this game, is the mirror labyrinth, because it's just incredibly obnoxious. And I could not solve... Not only did I not find the important item, and that's the only one that's completely missable.
Yes.
But I also could not solve the really difficult puzzle in there. I spent ages trying to solve it, and I could not figure out what the last hint was, and ended up going to a point of no return. And at that point, I was like, you know what? Forget it. Forget this. I'm done. I'm just going to go ahead. I'm not going to worry about... I'll still try and pacify enemies if I can, but if I can't, I'm not going to worry about it. And that made the final stretch of the game significantly more fun for me. Like, there's a very low point I hit around chapter 5, and then it slowly starts to go back up again until by the end of the game I'm like, yeah, okay, I see the source. I get it. I'm back on the hype train for this again.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I had a great time with the game, but there are some very frustrating moments, and there are things that you just won't figure out. So, again, I think if you're locked into a specific playstyle, you kind of have to change your playstyle based on what the game is throwing at you. And I definitely agree with you, because at first I was trying to spare as many people as possible. But then there were some situations where I didn't have the item or I couldn't figure it out. And I thought, I just got to KO this boss or this enemy. And then from that point on, where I kind of figured out, okay, you're not going to be able to save everybody. Go with your gut, go with your feeling. Then I really started to enjoy the game a lot more. And some of the more frustrating or annoying segments, they became a little funny to me because they were just so sadistic that it's just like, I can't believe this is in the game. Like the mirror puzzle. My tip for listeners is just abuse the Switch photo capture button. Take a photo of every single clue, and then it will help you. Just go back out every single time, and you will figure it out.
See, the problem with that is that it changes every single time.
Yes, that's something I didn't... Yes. You would take a few rounds before you realize what the gimmick of the mirror puzzle is.
To help people out, I finally finished uploading it yesterday, but I actually uploaded an entire walkthrough of this game on our archive channel for Source Gaming. It's my recorded second playthrough. I got 100% except for one treasure chest I missed, which I didn't realise till the very end. I'm really annoyed by myself on that. I had to include a note in that particular part of the walkthrough to be like, what you will see on screen may not be reflective of what you actually experience, because this is the gimmick. So just bear that in mind.
Yes, and I guess speaking of frustrating elements, the dialogue puzzles to pacify the enemy, you got to pick one. Insanely obtuse or extremely obtuse?
Insanely obtuse. I think the thing that makes the dialogue options particularly annoying is the fact that if you get just a single one wrong, it resets everything.
Yes.
So battles feel like they drag on for ages because you just didn't quite get the order of one. Like, there's one where you have to describe an omelette recipe.
Oh, yeah.
And for me, lots of those things could be in an omelette, loads of the options, but you have to give it, and you also have to give it in a very specific order. Like, there are some things you're obvious, it's like, oh yeah, oil, eggs, mushroom, but no, you have to put a certain amount of eggs in. Yes. You can't put the mushrooms in before you put the eggs in. And the game does give you this hint on what the solution to this is, very explicitly, you know, what order you should press them in, but it gives it to you in the prologue when you're not thinking about it.
Right.
And then this encounter doesn't happen until like chapter 4. You're just like, why isn't this? I don't understand why this one's not working. Why is this not in the omelette recipe?
Yes.
And there's a few encounters like that, but there are also some encounters that I think are really clever.
Yeah.
Like, there's one very late in the game which asks you to, like, dial murder or something like that.
Mm.
And the answer is you have to look on your phone and figure out your real life phone and be like, okay, to spell this word, it's 6336 because letters are associated with numbers on your phone. I think puzzles like that are actually super interesting to me. It's reflective of, is this some bizarre word riddle? Or is this asking me for an item or a clue that's game sensitive that it would have told me hours ago? Or is this actually a interesting puzzle that I need to solve? Like, again, another one later on in the game is when it asks you to recite pi to 12 places.
Yeah. I was looking that up.
Yeah. See, I'm a nerd, and I figured it out immediately and just
cool.
did it straight away.
Awesome.
I'm really proud of myself on that one.
Yeah, I got the first part, and then the other parts, I needed to, like, crack it open. Also, there's one for a Shakespeare recitation. So I Googled that as well. These types of meta puzzles are a little fun, and every enemy has a shell, like a claymation model. So again, very Moon. And this will unlock pages in your book that serves as a hint towards selecting the right dialogue option. And now some of these are pretty straightforward, but some of them are just, maybe I'm not that smart. And I know you're better at games than me. So I'm glad I could hear your opinion on the puzzles. There were some where I did feel like, yes, I figured it out. And there are definitely some where even after I knew the answer or I see how it played out, I still had zero idea what it was supposed to be or why the answer was the way it was. It really does go up and down.
Yeah, one of the early encounters I actually didn't figure out until someone on the Onion Games Discord told me what the solution was. I'd figured it out in-game and I'd done it, but I could not for the life of me understand what the hint wanted.
Yeah.
And it's like the bird one.
Oh, yeah,
It's like the second encounter in the game. And it's like the solution to that is that you have to remove BEING from the random list of like the really, really long line of gibberish it gives you. And then you'll see that there are 3 bird names in there. And then you have to assign the bird names to the sounds that those birds make and then recite it in that order, which is like multiple levels of just annoying. I'm not quite sure. But then also it's like owl, and I guess like, hoot, hoot, sure. But I don't necessarily know if all of these are like hoot and caw for a crow are probably the only bird noises I could tell you.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out what sound aligns to what type of bird based off my real life knowledge of what birds sound like.
Yes.
Is not the clearest. One thing that the books are good for that I didn't realise until the very end of the game is that they actually tell you if there's a hidden treasure chest in the encounter.
Yes.
And it gives you a hint on how to get said hidden treasure chest as well. And if it doesn't have any clear hint, then it's usually just don't get hit, don't take damage. And that's super important because there are some items you can only get from secret treasure chests that you then need in later encounters to actually even attempt to pacify them.
Yeah.
So... yeah.
Yeah, some of these dialogue puzzles, some I nailed the first time, some are truly trial and error. And I guess the game does want you to try and KO some enemies because you will learn that you could probably KO an enemy in maybe 3 hits as opposed to 5 or 6 dialogue selections. Now, these enemies, every enemy is an older, which by the way is a very cool name for a type of enemy. And these are personifications of adult problems, if that makes sense. Like one of the olders is obsessed with saving money. Another laments his bad family life. Another is a group of workers who wants to start a union. What did you think about this take on a JRPG enemy?
I really liked it. Stray Children has a lot it wants to say about growing up and adult life. I think the vibes and the themes and the messaging of Stray Children is some of its most impactful elements. And the kind of stuff that sort of elevates this game from just being a really frustrating version of Undertale to actually being something that's highly memorable and highly recommended. I quite like that a lot of these encounters aren't... We've gone far enough now that there's quite a few modern ones, like the person stuck to their phone getting into fights with people on social media.
Yes.
That's the problem. There's the guy who's just like into retro video games and just doesn't understand like He essentially got bullied because he only liked the retro games.
Mm.
The guy who's so obsessed with stocks and shares that he lost all his money because he was trying to go to the moon. And the way that they then take those ideas and turn them into monsters, I think is super cool. The designs of the monsters are appropriately creepy and quite ghastly, but they all really perfectly represent what it is they're trying to get across. Like the one who saves money is like a hen sitting on her nest egg.
Right.
But the social media one I talked about is another early one where it's basically a personification of Twitter. Like it's a bird. It's a scrangly bird, but it attacks you with the Twitter logo. And then when you realize what's going on with this enemy, once you read the book, once you get its dialogue from pacifying it, you're like, oh, I get it. There are some a few random ones. There's the loan shark, who's a snowman for some reason. I'm not really sure what the connection on that is. But it's really cool, and I really enjoyed connecting what all of these people's problems with adulthood was. What their issues were and how it turned them into these monsters. I like the in-law reason explanation behind it, why there are these shells everywhere. You get the tablets that sort of give you little backstories on things. The one that explains how these orders came about, I think, is quite interesting.
Yeah, each enemy really does feel kind of like a boss battle in scope, and they all have completely unique attacks. And in a very Undertale way, you dodge the enemy attacks via kind of a bullet hell style gameplay. And all these different types of attacks and animations, they really do look amazing, and all of them are so different. The amount of assets they must have had to create is truly bewildering. And I thought all the designs were excellent. They kind of reminded me of, I don't know if this book ever came out in the UK, but it reminded me of The Stinky Cheese Man. Are you familiar with The Stinky Cheese Man?
I'm not familiar with The Stinky Cheese Man.
Listeners, look up The Stinky Cheese Man, and this is very similar to Stray Children. At least I think so. The art from that book and from Stray Children are these warped, cartoonish figures with really exaggerated expressions, even more wild and outlandish than the characters from Moon. And all their attacks were just so unique. And the game has dozens of enemies. None of them are the same either. It doesn't feel like they copied and pasted them at all. There's a lot of really silly parodies like Pac-Man one and a Space Invader one. And you do kind of wonder, if Nintendo sees this game, are they going to make a phone call? Because they do like to rip off. There are many IPs that are almost copy and pasted into this game. So I wonder if Onion Games will get a phone call somewhere, especially from Nintendo.
All is fair use under parody.
I guess so. But there's like the question mark block for Mario in the game. And
yes, that is true. There is that one room which just has a bunch of gaming memorabilia in it, and it does have the question warp pipes and a question mark block.
Yes.
The way I see it, right, is back in the day with Donkey Kong Country 2, they chucked in Sonic shoes.
They sure did.
Earthworm Jim's gun into that, definitely without permission.
Yes, this is payback.
Yeah.
So outside the battle system is your typical JRPG field exploration where you talk to NPCs and fight items and whatnot. What did you think about the world of Stray Children?
The world of Stray Children is pretty great. It has a really good vibe. I think that's also held up by the visual style in general.
Oh, yeah.
Which is very PS1 era, because it's obviously trying to go for what Moon was doing. And so you have these pre-rendered graphics, but with sprite-based character, the 3D claymation shells and stuff like that. It's really cool. Each area feels very Moon-like, very RPG-like. You've got the forest, you've got the snow area, you've got the swamp water area, and the mushroom area. The one that I think is just a big reference to Rule of Roses, the other game.
Yeah, there is a Rule of Rose
Onion Games
joke.
made. The penultimate area, to me, feels like, just from the music and everyone's talking about EXP and stuff, is clearly meant to be like an RPG parody. It starts off a bit standard, but also sort of twists that standard. The second area is a snow area, but it's also like a prison.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting. I was not expecting that to be the case. The third area, the Frog Kingdom, the Prince Frog reminded me of Frog from Chrono Trigger, which I think Kimura also worked on.
Yeah, that's true.
That was my immediate thought on that one. I quite liked the vibes of that area, although I will say the boss of that area the build up to that boss was like might be the most uncomfortable I've ever felt.
Yeah,
in the game. There's some dialogue choices and events that I was like, oh, I don't. Ooh.
The game starts strong with your home in the moon setting. Then you're transported to the snowy prison where, admittedly, I wasn't really vibing with it because it is odd to toss you directly into a pretty depressing setting so early on. But then you get to the Frog Kingdom and you're like, yes, this is what I came here for. Every game really does just need a place called the Frog Kingdom. It will make any game better. And the structure of the game is not too dissimilar from Dragon Quest, where each area has its own distinct self-contained story arc. And then you get the item you're here to collect, and then you move on. And the world does have some puzzles and secrets you need to find by speaking to NPCs. But ironically, I didn't find these overworld challenges to be nearly as difficult as the battle dialogue puzzles.
No, definitely not. They're definitely much easier to... I think the dialogue enemy challenges are as difficult as they are because they're optional and they don't impact anything.
True, yes.
Like, because they quite rightly made it so that you didn't need to save all the enemies to get the best ending of the game. Although to get the best ending of the game is another can of nonsense. But you don't need to defeat them all. They can make them way harder than you'd expect. But the overworld, you need to be able to progress through the game.
Yeah.
So they're all fairly basic puzzles. I think there's only one overworld puzzle that stumped me. It's when you're trying to get the pajamas.
Yes.
In hindsight, it's kind of obvious, but it just took me way longer than I would have liked to figure out what I needed to do for that.
Yeah. The overworld has some good old-fashioned ice sliding puzzles, which I really appreciate. As a fan of classic Pokemon games, they need to bring back the ice sliding puzzles. And yeah, you mentioned the visuals. It does look like an HDified moon. It has that sort of 32-bit pixel art style, which you really don't see in a lot of games. It kind of reminded me a little bit of HD 2D with the lighting and the hyper detail in some sections.
I was thinking that as well. It is very HD 2D.
Yeah.
The particle effects going on. The classic HD 2D bloom.
Yeah. It really does look distinct. No game looks like this.
Yeah.
The soundtrack, the Thelonious Monkeys are back from Moon. I don't think it's quite as good as the Moon soundtrack. Really, nothing is. That's one of the best soundtracks I've ever heard in a game. This soundtrack is really excellent and contributes a lot to the setting.
There's a lot of really cool boss themes and the equivalent of dungeons where the Alders actually appear. There's a distinction between the areas where Alders can appear and where the player is safe.
Yeah.
But the places where the Alders can appear, some of those songs are really good. The forest one where it's just going, Mori...
Yes,
Mori. Yes. That's really good. Just even if it's just saying forest over and over again. It gives a really creepy, mysterious vibe, which is what you want from a Lost Woods. I think the music is solid in this game. It's not as good as Moon, but I think it's because Moon has so much variation in its music. As a game, for its soundtrack, you can get a record player and listen to Moon discs and basically customize your own background music as you play. They let them have a ton of variation in the types of songs they want to do. Whereas Stray Children, the music is very specific to each area. Yeah. It's a far more standard way of doing it. And they're good songs, but there's not that same level of freedom that Moon's OST allowed for. Yeah, that's true. And unfair to compare it to Moon because it's like that's top tier soundtrack. So even if you are within the ballpark, it's still better than a lot of game soundtracks. I'm trying to reflect on the themes of the game a bit. It's hard to say, well, obviously Stray Children is about this. You have the contrast between you being a boy and the enemies being adults, all with very adult problems. There's the thorough line of you looking for your father as well. But the game is kind of told in an abstract way. The areas are not really connected to each other and have their own individual story arcs. It can be a bit disjointed at times. It is one where I kind of want to reflect on it some more or hear some theories about what other people got from the game. But I love talking to all the strange and funny characters and all their weird goals. It's just so captivating. Like the guys who are fake sleeping in the Sleeping Kingdom so they can get to paradise. Similar to Moon, everyone you meet is just so immediately captivating. And you really do get hooked on the game. You really want to move on to the next area. And there's no way you can predict what's going to happen next. So I guess overall, how do you feel about Stray Children? I really like Stray Children. I gave it a 9 out of 10. It's like the best game I played this year and also the most frustrating game I've played this year. I enjoyed it enough where I wanted to play through it twice and I wanted to get through it to 100%. But that first playthrough, there are chunks of that where I wanted to pull my hair out, and I hated everything that was going on. Absolutely sending me through the ceiling in some encounters. But once you start playing the game with how the developers wanted you to play it, how the game wants you to approach it, once you take it at its own level and throw out your preconceived notions of how you should be playing this based on Moon and Undertale and other games, it becomes like really good. Like really solid. I think the vibes, the dialogue, the general story, the music, so much of that helps to push the player through all the frustrating elements of the game, because they are truly immaculate, and the themes are also really strong. Like, once you do sit back and reflect on it all, some of the stuff that Stray Children is trying to say, even about little things in life, I think is super interesting. So, absolutely a game I recommend to people to go play. Probably one of the better games I've played this year, for sure. Probably won't get recognised alongside the other big titles because it's still relatively niche in the larger game spectre. Also, the fact that it came out in Japan last year.
Yeah.
So it's not entirely new. Not that you wouldn't know that, because it being out in Japan for nearly a year did not help me in any way, shape, or form when trying to beat this game.
Yes.
Because I could barely find anything about it online still.
Yeah, I think it came out like December 26th or something in Japan. So
Yeah,
you can count it
something like
as...
that.
And the Steam release is this year, so you can count it as a 2025 game. I had a great time playing the game. It is very propulsive because every place you visit, every NPC you talk to, and this is one of those games where you want to talk to every NPC, everything is just immediately memorable and interesting. And I was impressed by just how much was put into the battle system's dodging mechanic. And every time I faced an older, I was really excited to hear both their backstory and see their attacks. I think that the core gameplay of just dodging the attacks works really well. Plus, the music and visual style, no game looks like this. Except for Moon, of course, but people aren't making games that look and feel like this.
Yeah.
But yeah, the talking puzzles, maybe a bit too cerebral for me, but I do think they could at least maybe show your progress and also maybe not reset the dialogue if you mess up. It does feel bad when you get 4 in a row and then you miss the last one and have to start over again. But I would recommend to people that, hey, if you can't figure it out, just attack the enemy. There's really no consequences in doing so. You're not going to lock yourself out of an ending. So what tips would you give to somebody trying out Stray Children?
Like I said earlier, just don't worry about saving everyone. Don't worry about trying to solve every puzzle. Just tackle this game through a first run blind. Go and do it as blind as possible. Obviously, if you've listened to this, you can't do it entirely blind, but don't listen to anything else Stray Children after this podcast and go play it. And just enjoy the ride. And then if you liked the vibes, go do a second loop of the game, now with your knowledge of what to expect. Every enemy does have hints. Every single puzzle does have hints. I saw some people online saying, oh, the hint for this puzzle is actually in Moon, and that's kind of ridiculous. And that's not the case. There is a hint for this puzzle in Stray Children. It's just that it's a reference to something that's also a puzzle in Moon.
Yes.
But you don't need any preconceived knowledge of Moon to solve the puzzle. Go in it as blind as possible. Be thorough with how you're looking around places. Be especially thorough in the mirror world, because that is the one part of the game where you can get locked out and not have the right things to have a fun time with the boss afterwards. So that's the one area where I'll say be especially thorough.
Yes.
Even if it doesn't look like there's something on the ground, there will be something on the ground.
Yes.
Have a good time.
Yeah. I would say don't stress out too much about saving every older. If you can't figure it out, it's A-okay. Just move on. You can play the game kind of at your own pace. So I want to look at the future of Onion Games a bit. Their other games are pretty different from their Love to Leak pedigree. Do you think now they're going to lean more into Love to Leak style games, or are they going to pivot to something else, or get that back catalog out there, or what do you think they're going to do next?
I think they'll just continue to sort of do what they wanted to do. I don't foresee them making another game like Moon and Stray Children. I think Stray Children was definitely done as a response to Moon's sudden rebirth in popularity, and I hope Stray Children does really well. Even if it does really well for them and becomes one of their best selling games, I don't think they're going to immediately jump back into doing an RPG. They like making their quirky, smaller games like Monomore and Blackbird, and Million Onion Hotel is obviously really popular. I do think that next up for them will probably be bringing another one of these classic games back. They've talked a few times now about re-releasing Tulip or re-releasing Rule of Rose. So I could easily see, I think that's probably going to be their next one, that they'll probably do Tulip, I think, of those two.
I kind of think they are trying to bring Tulip back solely because I posted about Tulip once on Blue Sky and Onion Games reposted me. So they have a Google alert for Tulip. I loved Moon, and this year I also played Chibi Robo, which is also kind of Moon 2 in a way. I want to work my way through these types of games, which ironically Stray Children is not one of those types of games, but it does take many pages out of Moon's playbook beyond the gameplay.
Yes.
I guess final question. Let's say they put Dogface Boy in Smash. What's his moveset? What's the stage?
So for the moveset, obviously you got the spinning pickaxe, right?
Yes.
That's got to be the special attack. What else?
Give him some of the older's moves. Lore-wise, that doesn't make sense, but I think that could translate well into Smash. For stage, I want to pick Frog Kingdom. Do you have a different one?
I'd really like Heaven, actually.
Okay.
I think that would be a really cool stage. This floating steampunky island. Or even the final area. That's got a really good visual aesthetic to it.
Oh, yeah.
There's a few things that happen throughout the game, like quick time events that you can also pull from for a moveset. Like where he does the Street Fighter...
Oh, yes.
backflip kick and stuff like that.
Yeah. This game has so many unique assets and elements and one-time events that are really unique. We didn't even mention there's like shooter segments. When you're
there are. Yeah,
that are very bizarre. But, yeah, like shmup sessions. But this game has a lot of just one-off jokes and fun things to do. So, yes, Stray Children. If you liked Moon, if you liked Undertale, check it out. So, Joshua Goldie, where can people find you?
You can find me all over the internet on Blue Sky. You can find me Nantenjex at Blue Sky. I've obviously got Source Game Nintendo Chronicler. The thing I want to point out, though, this time is another podcast that you should go listen to after listening to this podcast, called the Nintendo Dormant podcast, which I am a regular guest on. It's hosted by my friend George and me and John Cartwright from GVG, Nintendo Live. You'll have seen X Game Explain. You'll have seen him all over the internet. The two of us every week chat with George, and we talk about a Nintendo game series that hasn't happened in a long time. We did Puzzle League recently. I think we've done Chibi Robo in the past. I'm pretty sure we've done Chibi Robo episode. I think the next one we've got coming out is Kirby's Epic Yarn, because of Kirby Air Riders that's about to come out. So it'll be on Nintendo Dormant on Blue Sky or on YouTube or on Spotify. So go and listen to that. They're a lot of fun.
Yes, I've listened to a couple of episodes. And yes, if you are a deep in the sauce Nintendo fan, which you probably are if you're listening to this podcast, definitely check out Nintendo Dormant. And so the links to everything will be in the podcast description. So listeners, check it out. Joshua Goldie, once again, thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me on again. I always love talking about these love delivery games. I'm going to steal that term, by the way.
Now, normally on this podcast, Kirby plays second fiddle to no one. And I mean no one. But the year is coming to a close, and I've got my Game of the Year and 2026 prediction episodes coming up in December. So this is really my last time to talk Kirby before the year wraps up. And it happened, y'all. Kirby Air Riders, developed by Bandai Namco and directed by the king of gaming, Masahiro Sakurai. I haven't picked up his manga yet, but trust me, I will. This was one of the major announcements during the Switch 2's debut direct, and it was easily one of the most surprising announcements in a show filled with surprises. From Software making an exclusive game for Switch 2? Far more believable than Kirby's Air Ride returning with Sakurai at the helm. And after 2 lengthy directs hosted by Sakurai, the game is in my hands and I've been playing it. A lot of it, and I would argue perhaps an unhealthy amount of it. But I can't stop. Sakurai has truly done it again. And let me say, while I love Kirby and everything he stands for, I am not a Kirby's Air Ride evangelist. I played some of the GameCube game and it was fine for what it was. City Trial was undoubtedly fun, but it felt very undercooked. I would argue that game is one of the weakest Kirby games. But now, Kirby Air Riders on Switch 2 has catapulted itself to being one of the best Kirby games. I know what you're thinking. Is this Kirby Mario Kart? Yes and no. While it is a franchise racing game with items and a cartoonish aesthetic, it feels more like racing is the tool in which you interact with the game's many modes, as opposed to being just a straight-up traditional racing experience. All the modes in the game are racing adjacent, but they are all vastly different in how you interact with them, and there are tons of other little challenges and mini-games that don't have anything to do with racing at all. Imagine if the mini-game modes from Kirby, Mario Kart, Mario Party, and Smash Bros. All had a beautiful baby. That's Kirby Air Riders. I think Sakurai has engineered the game to tap straight into my dopamine receptors, including parts of my brain I didn't even know I had. It's completely addictive due to the sheer number of vastly different gameplay experiences you can have, a constant slew of interesting rewards, unique challenges you can knock out, and experimenting with all the different riders and the machines, the expansive customization. While I won't say it's as content-rich as Smash Ultimate, it's as content-rich as this game could possibly be. There's plenty here to discover and engage with, and all of it is the perfect fusion of simplicity and technical depth that keeps you wanting to play and improve. Plus, with online, you get a greater appreciation for just how engaging the gameplay can be when faced off against other people who really know what they're doing. There are 4 main modes: Air Ride, which is your traditional finish line racing experience; Top Ride, which is also a racing mode, but it's top-down racing with completely different tracks and items; Road Trip, which is the story mode that blends the classic mode from Smash Bros. With some light roguelike elements; and City Trial, which is almost a genre of a game within itself. Open world arena stat builder with minigames? I don't know, I can only describe it as a City Trial-like. You've essentially got 4 totally different games here, so you can treat it like a buffet where you are sampling everything, or you can just lock in and focus on one. I mean, let's skip to it. City Trial. I don't know if I would call that the best mode, because I do like the core racing experience, but it is the franchise's calling card. People lost their mind when Ultimate had an awesome rendition of the City Trial music. You're in an open hub with a 5-minute timer, and you drive around collecting stat boost as you get more and more powerful. Then at the end, you do a challenge like a short race or a battle or some other random minigame. You might think, so do you spend 5 minutes wandering around and then the winner is decided by who got the most points via a single minigame? On paper, it seems silly, and I can get the frustration of quote-unquote losing because you didn't do well in a minigame after spending so much time building up your character. But here's my City Trial philosophy. It's about the journey, not the destination. The constant drive to improve, to explore, to experiment, to experience all the wild things that could happen during a match, that's the real pull. I never felt bummed that I ended up last in the minigame. I never felt like I lost City Trial. Some runs don't go your way, but you are always learning something about the layout, about what machines to use when, how to take advantage of special events and situations. For something that feels and looks chaotic at times, there's a tremendous amount of depth. And that's basically the thesis statement of this game. It looks and feels insane, but underneath that are gameplay mechanics that are just begging you to master them. And I cannot express how much online truly adds to the experience. Online City Trial. This was a dream for many, and now it's here. Matches are far more exciting when you have 15 other real-deal players all trying to rush the same field boss or escape meteors slamming down into the map. When you KO someone and take their machine, that's it. You feel like the greatest Kirby player to ever live. But yes, there are other modes besides City Trial. The new one is Road Trip, which is basically the single-player story mode. It's not too dissimilar from classic mode in Smash Bros., where you go in a straight line with deviation points, but there is light roguelike elements in terms of that you are now picking between one of 3 choices, and you are rewarded with specific stat boosts. To be honest though, I don't think too hard about the stat build, but I do recommend points in offense and defense since you are fighting a lot of the bosses. This mode is a great one to start with since you can really sample everything the game has to offer. One selection of choices might have you pick between a 1-lap air ride race, a game where you need to drive over buttons to rack up points, or a battle arena where you need to defeat an enemy. Even within one type of challenge, there are so many variations. I did a rival battle against Bandana Waddle Dee, and the entire stage was filled with giant Waddle Dees that I could suck up and spit out to attack Bandana. There's dozens of weird and unique scenarios here in Road Trip. It's much longer than a classic mode run-through, as it takes about 2 or 3 hours to complete. But it is tied to a story, which I won't spoil, but it is classic Kirby in terms of lore, scope, and absolutely eye-popping cutscenes and incredible moments. I have to think these are maybe the most expensive cutscenes Nintendo has ever produced. They look unbelievable. Now, I hate to lobby any criticism at Air Riders, since you could argue this is the greatest game there ever was and ever will be. But slight spoilers, you don't get the quote-unquote true ending your first go-around. It's literally impossible. So you need to go through it at least twice. There is a New Game Plus that carries over some stuff, but it doesn't feel good to see some ending and then the game is like, well, there's a better one, so back to the start you go. And once you see the true ending, which legitimately is awesome, I can't undersell it, you likely will never play Road Trip again, unless you are a completionist and want to get all the checklist items. I think having a shorter 20-ish minute classic mode that's different between each character would maybe be better in terms of replayability. But Road Trip is just challenge after challenge, which is fun since the game is that good. I've been talking for quite a while now, and I haven't even touched on Air Ride, which is, the racing mode of this racing game. And that's not because it's bad. Oh no, quite the opposite. But that goes to show you that this game has just so much to offer that you can focus on what you want to focus on. Now, this racer, again, cannot stress this enough, it's not Mario Kart. You do need to hit those turns, and there are items, but the control scheme is totally different and there's a heavier emphasis on attacking enemies to gain ground. Also, you automatically move forward, so the control stick is purely for left and right movement. This takes some getting used to, but you will get used to it, don't worry. The famed one-button control is your boost charge, which also lets you drift around corners and you can brake stop by mashing it, which is very useful on some tracks and with certain rider-machine combos. It also serves as your copy and attack abilities, so it is fairly context-sensitive. But yes, there is a legendary second button added to the game, but that is only used for your special, so don't worry about it too much. The races are intensely exciting, and sometimes do feel like somebody is shooting fireworks into your eyes with all the particle effects and the sheer speed in which you are traveling. But I love the mechanics of a race, needing to attack enemies to get that extra boost, and taking advantage of the course obstacles and your vehicle's abilities to get the edge in a race. All of it works well in tandem with each other. The courses are so visually kinetic with amazing transitions between sections of a track, and there are way more secret routes and traversal options than you would expect. The game has both new and the original tracks from Air Ride, and you do gain a greater appreciation for just how much better these new tracks are. But I do think the originals are pretty solid, especially now with the new gameplay mechanics. I also love how the original tracks keep their GameCube-esque art style, if that makes sense. I would say the game as a whole kind of looks like a 4K GameCube game. Imagine the most expensive 4K GameCube game to ever exist, and this is Kirby Air Riders. Parentheses positive. Now, the best course? I think in terms of pure spectacle, the one centered around Nova is phenomenal. A great Bowser's Castle analog. But I also love Steam Gust Forge and Waterflow Waters. There's not a bad one here, to be honest. And part of why racing is so fun is that the character and machine combos feel way more impactful than they do in Mario Kart. Yes, Bowser in the Cute Scoot is going to feel different from Baby Luigi in the B-Dasher, but that's just adjusting sliders a bit, while in Air Riders, the characters all have unique specials, oftentimes unique abilities, like DeRoche can steal other riders' copy abilities, and Bandana Waddle Dee has a faster boost charge. But obviously, the best character is Rick. And I say this without looking at his stats. But he has easily the funniest special by far. I went into the game thinking I would only pick Rick, but I gotta admit, I have been picking other characters, and they are fun. I've been winning races as Magolor. I'm still going to main Rick, but I can't ignore wins. But the real game changers are the machines, all which are vastly different from each other. Wingstar excels at flying, and I'm talking like it's basically an airplane once it catches some air. Wagonstar can't boost. Yes, it doesn't have an entire gameplay mechanic, but it makes up for it with its excellent stats in other areas. Vampire Star auto-attacks enemies, giving it a major boost. Rocket Star can only move via boost charges. Formula Star is insanely fast, but it's really bad at turning. Hop Star lets you jump into the air and then crash back down. Swerve Star warps around the track. There are multiple tanks. There's one that can transform into 2 vehicles. There's way more variety here in these vehicles than in any other racing game I can think of. It invites experimentation, not only in Air Ride, but in the other modes as well. Some machines you never touch in Air Ride, but they might be good in City Trial or vice versa. And the default Warp Star is actually quite good, so you can just roll with that until you get a hang of the game. As a recommendation, I do really dig Paper Star due to its versatility. Top Ride is the other racing mode, where you can control your machines via a top-down view like classic racing games. Now, I was never really into those top-down racers, but Top Ride feels excellent, and the shorter but distinct race courses do set it apart from Air Ride. It does feel like every turn matters, and you can really take the lead quickly if you perfectly nail these turns. And my precious Paper Star is great in this mode if you catch some air. On the air course, if you hit that last ramp with any sort of flying machine, you basically auto-win if you are anywhere near first place. You gain that much momentum. Since the courses are shorter and more compact, there are a lot more nail-biting finishes here. Oh, and there's also unique items for this mode, so it doesn't feel like a condensed version of Air Ride at all. It truly feels like its own distinct style of racing. And like I said before, all the tracks are unique, even though some are themed similarly to Air Ride courses. I think out of the big 3 online modes, Top Ride is probably the least popular, but you only need 4 players, so you can easily find a group pretty quickly. And speaking on online, racing against real people adds so much replayability to the game. I'm going to jump into City Trial, then do another round of City Trial because you can't stop at just one. And then after that, okay, let's jump into some online Top Ride, then a few rounds of Air Ride. That loop of jumping in and out of different modes while playing online will eat up hours. There's also paddocks, which are online lobbies, and these are set up very well since players can just create custom rules for any type of mode they want, and you can join them freely. I haven't mentioned this yet, but while the ranked modes are a set rule set, you can really customize the modes to a surprising degree locally or in the online paddocks. Like there are team race relays where one person races one lap and then hands it off to the next person. You can also customize races to be time-based instead of lap-based. You can do 8v8 team city trial. You can set the laps to 99 if you want. You can turn items on or off. The level of customization here is ripped straight out of Smash Bros. So don't just do ranked mode, experiment a little bit. And yes, in general, the game does feel a lot like Smash Bros. But if you think about it, Smash Bros. Is based off of Kirby Superstar, which of course is based off of Kirby, so it comes full circle. The music, the menus, the challenge board, all of this is straight out of Smash Bros. And I haven't really touched on the challenge board at all. All 4 modes, plus online, have their own distinct challenges that you unlock racers, machines, and customization stuff with. And all of these are constantly popping off. You will unlock so much just by playing the game, but eventually you will want to peek at the board to see what's something you can do to unlock something you want. And a lot of the challenges are things you probably wouldn't think of, like getting to the top of the monitor in the online paddock. I've never been an achievement guy, but how the challenges are presented in a Sakurai game, the sheer volume of them, and it being tied to unlocks, it really does make me wish that every game had something like this. Stray Children Challenge Board? Onion Games could do it. The game also has a ton of customization options for your rider and your machine, and that honestly could be its own game entirely. You can put hats on your riders, there's a garage you can decorate with your machines, you have a cool license you can decorate to your heart's content. I think my current title on my license is Rip Roaring Chonker, and it has a Christmas background with all the ornaments being Kirby characters. Like I made a 02 ornament. You can also flip through everyone's licenses while you are waiting for a race, so again, no second in this game is boring or idle. You can always do something. But the real crown jewel of the customization system is indeed customizing the machines via the My Machine mode. Now, this is not to the level of something like Forza, but people have made some truly amazing machines that are both hilarious and artistically impressive. Like the Transform Star, people have been able to customize it to where it displays completely different images once it transforms. I envy this level of skill and patience. But you have hundreds of decals, colors, and patterns to play with. You can truly spend hours upon hours in this mode alone. Day one, there were a lot of Warp Star customizations in the online shop, so some people loaded up the game and beelined it to the customization section. And yes, you can buy other people's designs with in-game currency, but the popular ones are more expensive. You can filter by your friends' creations, which I appreciate. I just want to point out that at no point in Mario Maker could you tab over to see all your friends' levels, but I can see all my friends' corn-patterned racing machines. The game is just far more content-rich than I imagined. If you have a completionist brain, the challenge board alone is going to keep you busy. You could just customize machines, that could be its own whole game, but for me, I'm just content playing through all the races in City Trial because the core gameplay is just so engaging and deep. I want to try out all the machines because they are just so different, and I feel like I'm always learning something after each race or City Trial run. I'm thinking about all these live service games that need a constant flow of new content to reframe the gameplay in some interesting way, but Air Riders just has solid fundamentals while also having so many different ways to play that it never feels rote or dull. I don't need a Marks-themed season pass, because it's just fun to pop into a race and my reward is having a fun race. Remember when you played a multiplayer game to have fun? Remember when the reward was fun? But yes, you will probably also be randomly unlocking something on the challenge board as well. So is this game better than Mario Kart World? Again, it is kind of hard to compare them. It's like asking if Baldur's Gate 3 is better than Metaphor ReFantasio. I mean, they are both RPGs, you have parties, there's a heavy storytelling emphasis, but how these games present these systems are totally different. And it's the same between Air Riders and World. But my Game of the Year episode is coming up soon, and one's got to be above the other, so tune in for my final verdict. But in short, Kirby Air Riders, definitely one of the biggest surprises of the year. Both in that it exists, and it's just that good. Sakurai, he doesn't miss. He delivered the ultimate version of this game, and despite it not having any DLC or major updates coming in the future, the soul of the game is strong enough that I think it will have a passionate audience who will be playing this for the entirety of the Switch 2's life. Just throw away whatever medicine you need, a daily run in City Trial will cure whatever you have. Okay, one more game before we move on to the feature. Again, Game of the Year talk is coming up, and this probably won't make my top 5, but it is truly one of the more distinctive releases in 2025, Sonokuni. What if a Japanese hip-hop group made Hotline Miami with a parry, but it was based on Japanese mythology and had a vibrant visual style that was truly beyond words? That's what Sonokuni is. The developer is Don Yasa Crew, who are a Japanese hip-hop group who are also the developers. They do really push themselves as being a hip-hop group first, but they are the devs. They made this game. It's not like a band had an idea and then farmed it out to somebody else. So I think by default, this group of guys is amongst the most talented devs on the planet. I mean, can Sakurai write and perform hip-hop music? Honestly, he probably could, but he hasn't yet. Anyways, this game came out in March and has been sitting on my wishlist for quite a long time, but it went on sale a few weeks ago. I cleared DQ1 and had a few days before Air Riders, and instead of playing all my other games I haven't finished, I thought, now's the time to buy a new game. But I'm glad I did, because it is a fantastic action game with a truly one-of-a-kind visual look, an addicting soundtrack, and a really thought-provoking story which I didn't expect at all going in. The gameplay is very similar to Hotline Miami, where you enter a room, have a few seconds to dispose of all the enemies, rinse, and repeat. If you die, you instantly respawn outside of the door. What separates itself from Hotline Miami is that, get ready for this, there's a parry. Expedition 33, move over. You have 3 main actions, a circular attack that is also a parry, and a projectile deflect. Which sounds like a parry, but that just makes the projectile go behind you as opposed to back at the opponent. Your final action is the ability to slow time, allowing you to better parse all the mayhem coming at you. You learn all these abilities at the start, and you can use them the entire game. You're not learning some new technique on level 2 or level 3. You've got these attacks, and that's it. But it never gets boring due to the well-designed battle rooms and the diverse array of enemies. Here's a typical room. You've got 2 radish enemies that will charge directly at you. A sword enemy you can only defeat by parrying. 2 enemies that shoot projectiles that you can't parry, but you can deflect them so you can move in closer. Oh, and there's another enemy that auto-kills you after a certain amount of time. Good luck. The fun of this game comes from figuring out the pattern and executing. Enter, aggro the radishes, slightly move up, kill the radishes after their attack animation, and that attack also kills the sword enemy via a parry. Now deflect the projectile enemies, then aggro the instant kill enemy. 4 seconds later, room cleared. Compared to Hotline Miami, the gameplay here feels a bit more tactical. It feels less chaotic and you can't really cheese rooms, especially with the enemies that will kill you after a specific time. I will say that I never felt like the rooms had only one solution. There is some space for improvisation and flexibility. I'll say overall it's a bit easier than Hotline Miami as well, especially with the slowdown ability, which can really help you brute force some situations. But those last few areas are pretty tough. There is an easy mode, so feel free to pop that on if you really need to. So the minute-to-minute gameplay is a very solid Hotline Miami-like, with some neat gameplay ideas. But the real hook of the game is absolutely its visual style and soundtrack. The look of the game, man, how do I even describe it? I could throw out some dime a dozen words like surreal, psychedelic, bizarre, but even those don't do it justice. It reminds me a bit of 90s computer art in that a lot of it looks like you could make it in Microsoft Paint, but it has this very vivid, overly saturated pixel look, and oftentimes a clashing art style. But the clash is in an interesting way. In between levels, you go to your village, and then you can see some nice, richly detailed pixel art of the characters, who, again, all look very outlandish and colorful. Going back to Hotline Miami, I can see that game's hyper-colorful pixel art being the main inspiration for the art in this as well, but Sonokuni goes in just a completely different direction that it feels really singular. The whole game feels like an alternate universe Hotline Miami in a way, in that on paper, a lot of it is the same, but the execution is so different that it dodges the clone label. The soundtrack is from the devs, from this Japanese hip-hop group, and I would say it fits the rhythm of the gameplay and the setting since it does almost feel like chants as opposed to what you would consider to be a typical hip-hop song. Honestly, I didn't like the first song, but it does get better, so hang in there. I don't know if this is something I'd listen to outside of the game, but it is a very creative take on a game soundtrack, especially for this type of game. I haven't really talked about the story yet, and you might think, why would you? It seems like a straightforward action game, but I did find the story to be a bit more intriguing than I imagined. You play as a gender-swapped Yamato Takeru from Japanese mythology fame, wielder of the legendary Kusanagi sword. The plot centers around the Denzians of Sonokuni, a tribe reminiscent of Jomon-era humans with large colorful tattoos, and the citizens of Wano-kuni, who are like a plant hive mind who want to assimilate Sonokuni to be just like them. Thus, in order to preserve your people and your culture, you delve into Wano-kuni and start slaying these vegetable mutants. However, the story does go deeper than people good, vegetables bad. I was hooked by Takeru's conflict between if killing these creatures was the best course of action, and the moral dilemma of if Sonokuni was worth saving, or if it would be better to just assimilate. Obviously, the story isn't as good as Kirby Air Riders, but, it's close. I was very impressed by Sonokuni on all fronts. I definitely think it's an easy recommendation if you love Hotline Miami. I do feel like the indie scene in Japan hasn't really been able to reach a worldwide audience yet. Like I'm buying Pokemon instead of 4 Japanese indie games for that same price. But if you want something that feels very Japanese despite ironically being heavily inspired by a Western game, Sonokuni stands out. Alright, that's all for games, so let's move on to the feature. Today's feature is about Final Fantasy IX 25th Anniversary The Exhibition, which is happening right now in Ginza. I mean, I think the name is pretty explanatory. It's an exhibit about Final Fantasy IX. Why? Well, it's the 25th anniversary. Did we get a full-blown remake, which was heavily rumored? No, but we've got this exhibit instead. My Final Fantasy IX history. Actually, I never played it as a kid. The first time I tried it was in 2016, so quite far away from its original release. But I thought it was excellent. Definitely one of the top-tier Final Fantasy games. But even then, it's like, maybe the 5th best Final Fantasy game for me? I'd go 7, 6, 4, then 9 maybe, or is 10 better than 9, and is 10 2 better than 10? We could be here all day, so let's just go inside the exhibit. It's a celebration of Final Fantasy IX, which was, at the time, a love letter to Final Fantasy. I do feel old now that Final Fantasy IX, the game that was supposed to be a nostalgic callback to classic Final Fantasy, is now 25 years old. The gap between Final Fantasy I and Final Fantasy IX was only 13 years, and now we are almost twice that from Final Fantasy IX to now. It's happening at Yurakucho Marui, a huge department store right outside of Yurakucho Station, in the Fancy Pants Ginza area. I used to come here every week because before COVID, I studied tea ceremony, and my school was not too far from here. But now I rarely trek over to Ginza, mostly because I don't need to buy a bunch of luxury fashion. I've got plenty of Kirby shirts to keep me warm. And having the exhibit here was a bit odd, I have to admit. Ginza is not a gaming hotspot at all, but when the IP is as beloved as Final Fantasy, if you build it, they will come. The exhibit was announced a few months ago, and really up until this past week, we didn't know what would be in it. We knew there would be some merch, but making an exhibit about a game, which is purely a digital art form, is a little tough. I've been to many game exhibits here in Japan, and the best ones do center around having a lot of unique physical objects, like the Shape of Mother Earthbound exhibit from earlier this year, which had the real deal clay figures from the Earthbound marketing. But I was impressed by this Final Fantasy IX one due to its smooth layout, great photo ops, and fantastic art on display. There's no timed entry tickets for the weekdays, but on the weekend, you do need to buy ahead of time. Most are already filled, but you can still nab a ticket for a post 5 p.m. time, which was when I went. When I exchanged my ticket, I got a free Tetramaster card featuring Garnet. Tetramaster is fine, but come on, it's no triple triad. I would probably buy a complete set of these cards though if they were high quality. The exhibit is mostly an art gallery highlighting concept art from the games, but there are some photo spots as well, and of course you exit through the gift shop. Now, you know what series has good art? Final Fantasy. So you can really do a lot with just putting the art on walls for people to gawk at. And of course, the music from the game is playing in the exhibit as well. Uematsu said this was his favorite Final Fantasy soundtrack he composed, something I didn't agree with after I played Final Fantasy IX, but reflecting back on it, 9 certainly has an incredible array of tracks. You Are Not Alone? Easily a top 5 Final Fantasy song. The layout is mostly one long hallway that zigzags around, so there's not a whole lot of open space to move around in. And since I went opening weekend, yeah, it was very, very busy. I was just kind of slowly moving along in a big line, but you can always stop and go back if you really need to take a picture. The first section highlights the amazing artwork of Yoshitaka Amano. Now, I did wonder, is this the original illustration? Is this the copy they scanned to use for promo material? I don't have an answer, and the site doesn't clarify it, but looking at it up close, if these are just something somebody printed off, they fooled me. It is hard to believe that these would be preserved so nicely after 25 years, but hey, maybe they were. Either way, they looked incredible in person, and after seeing the art online for many years, it is great to see some physical version of it in person. And a lot of the art are sketches and other pieces I had never seen before. The exhibit doesn't particularly highlight that it features never-before-seen artwork, so maybe if you memorized Ultimania, a lot of this is old news, but there were a ton of things that were new, at least to me. But I mean, if this was a Pokemon Gen 1 art exhibit, I would definitely know what items had never been revealed to the public before. I can't say the same for Final Fantasy IX. After the Amano section at the entrance, the first part of the exhibit highlights all the characters from Final Fantasy IX. The exhibit walls are completely black, which really helps the vibrant colors from the artwork stand out. Each character has their render, a little stat sheet, and then some concept art next to them, including more from Amano. A common layout is one huge piece of Amano art, then two smaller concept sketches. Zidane, of course, being the main character, has a bit more than the other folks. The best Amano character sketch? That is actually hard. Steiner looks fantastic, but far more serious than his design in the game. Vivi and Queen are also way more richly detailed as well. They almost feel like alternate costumes while everyone else is a bit more faithful. I still feel like there hasn't been a game that has faithfully translated Amano's artwork. Maybe it would be too visually overstimulating or difficult to portray in 3D, but I want someone to try. The main characters are, of course, great, but you do get a better appreciation for just how singular the Final Fantasy IX art style is once you get to the big wall of minor characters and NPCs. Everyone stands out in some way, and it is sad that Final Fantasy will never ever go back to this more cartoonish, almost fairy tale-esque art style in a numbered entry. After the characters is a section focused on the world of Final Fantasy IX. You've got a world map and also concept art of every location in the game. These are printed on smaller canvases, and I would have liked to have seen a few larger pieces, like with the character selection. But they do gotta shove in a whole world in here. And like with the character designs, you do get a greater appreciation for the art design of the world here, since you see all the places right next to each other. The steampunk castle of Lindblum, the intricate desert palace, the evil forest, don't go in there. I would have liked to see more art from the Crystal World, which is one of the most evocative settings in any Final Fantasy game. The section also has a lot of art of the monsters and the airships too. I did like the Ozma concept art, which just kind of explained that it was a circle. There's also a special Eidolon or summon section where the wall has a big video of the summon animations from the game. Were the PS1 Final Fantasy games the most impressive when it came to how they portrayed the summons? Is that just pure nostalgia? I just think the scope of what they pulled off, the animation, is much more impressive than the hyper-realistic summons you see in the modern games. I've also been very fascinated with how summons, or Eidolons as they're called nowadays, are handled in Final Fantasy lore. Sometimes they are just treated as some super attack, no backstory, no explanation, but in other games they are incredibly pivotal to the story. In Final Fantasy VI, they are the backbone of the history of the game's world and magic, but in Final Fantasy VII, it's like, I don't know, sometimes you can just call upon a blue lady. After the summon room is the weapons room, a long hallway where you can see each of the characters' weapon art. Obviously, the best weapons are Queen's Forks. And around the corner you get more concept art from the game before it really settled on its art style, like an alternative logo and landscapes that evoke more of a darker tone and aesthetic. And here's a big photo op showcasing a huge 3D rendering of Zidane and Vivi looking at the moon. And on the wall across from that is a big section dedicated to the new Vivi-themed picture book that was just released in Japan. This is one of the new major anniversary items, so it makes sense to advertise it in a big way beforehand. Moving on from that, the next room has what I would call the exhibit's main photo op, a real-life version of a Final Fantasy IX battle. There's a background showcasing the Crystal World, and you can hold a real-life version of Excalibur II, which is like a big glowing greatsword. It's attached to the wall, so you can really only grab the handle. You don't want somebody injuring themselves, and historically, many people were hurt trying to wield Excalibur. In the foreground is like a big 3D printed version of the command menu, which looks really awesome. This would be a fantastic room decoration. And there's also what I would call a big acrylic stand with the party HP and MP printed on it. The party is Zidane, Steiner, Vivi, and Dagger, which is a pretty common team. But I mean, you gotta rock Quina for White Wind. And Freya is really good against the final boss. But there is no bad party setup. Oh, and above the back wall is a text box that says climb hazard, so this is the closest you're going to get to pulling that off in real life. I think I would have liked to have seen more of these real life versions of things from the game. The art and dev documents are far more authentic, but making more things specifically for the exhibit would have been really exciting. The next section is titled Hideo Minaba Development Materials. Minaba was the main art and character designer of the game, and this section features a ton of sketches from the development of the game. I'm talking dozens and dozens of sketches, pencil work, and just general doodlings. For example, there is a rough sketch of the cover art of the Art of Final Fantasy IX book. But I think for history buffs, the most exciting thing is behind glass, pages from the original Final Fantasy IX proposal. We've got the black and white cover page dated April 12, 1998, which also states that it was planned to release in the 1999 holiday season. It came out a year after that, but it's so crazy that in April 1998, they had the bare bones plan for the game on paper, and then in summer 2000, the game was out. That would never ever happen for any sort of major franchise today, especially not for Final Fantasy. The cover page does highlight some things that would be in the game, like the focus on crystals, and there is a note about Square characters appearing, which technically isn't true, but there are many callbacks to existing characters in the game, with several sharing the exact same name. There's also a reference to Cruise Chaser Blasty, which is a pre-Final Fantasy game from Square, which kind of does end up in Final Fantasy IX, which I'll get into in a minute. But what's crazier is that in the same area, there's a document dated September 1997 also talking about Final Fantasy IX. Keep in mind, Final Fantasy VIII isn't even out yet at this time. The main scenario is centered around the question, what are we fighting for? And the concept of the story revolves around people who were inside, I guess you would translate it to an arc, and then also focusing on the people outside of the arc and how these two worlds interact. So the idea of two worlds does appear in the finished version of Final Fantasy IX, but the framing here is totally different. Interesting to see how this concept was established so early on. And oh, there is a small sketch of Vivi at the top. Minaba really hit gold with that design very early on. Other pages detail the art concept even more, along with the callbacks to Final Fantasy I. And it really frames Garland as the main antagonist who was established early on, along with emphasizing people who lived inside an arc. Garnet's ultimate summon in Final Fantasy IX is called Arc, which is modeled after the aforementioned Cruise Chaser Blasty, so I do wonder if they'd shifted that idea over to this, and went with a different direction for the setting. There's also a sketch about a clock tower filled with ghosts. It's just really wild to see all these completely different concepts that just didn't end up making it into the game. I mean, is this common information? Am I breaking news here? I honestly can't find much about the original concept of Final Fantasy IX here in English. But even if it is old news, it is amazing to see the actual documents in person, pencil scribbles and all. Sadly, they won't let you touch it, so you cannot absorb Minaba's powers. The next section is what I would call the fan art section, which is just a big wall plastered with a bunch of Final Fantasy IX fan art. Cool. And there's a wall highlighting iconic moments from the game, and in the final room, it has the ending credits playing on a big screen in the back, along with quotes from Vivi's final speech. I felt this was very clever. Like, imagine if you had to translate the ending cutscene of a video game into a room. And you also get to see the sheet music for Melodies of Life. When you exit, you can write a little note on a card and put it on a wall. I did sign mine, so try to find it if you go. And of course, the final section, the merch area. There's quite a lot of exclusive merch for the exhibit, and for Final Fantasy IX's 25th anniversary in general. Some of it is being sold at Square Enix Garden in Shibuya, but there's stuff I only saw here. The highlight being the big Ozma plushie. I mean, it's just a big ball with a crazy pattern, but it is amusing to see the game's ultimate hidden boss get its own merch. They also sold an Ozma pattern buttoned-up shirt if you want to become Ozma. The rest of the merch is your typical stuff, stickers, pin badges, and yes, acrylic stands. We can't let them win, guys. If we buy none of them, eventually they will have to stop making these. A lot of these things are based on the concept art instead of the final version, so it is a cool mix-up. It's not designs you've seen 100 times before. Other fun merch, there's a white mage poncho, but it looks very short. It's almost like a shoulder cape. There's a Moogle Savebook soft case, some postcards, Final Fantasy IX character plushies. If you want something Final Fantasy IX related, the gift shop here has you covered. What did I pick up? I got the Vivi picture book. I would have loved a book about the actual exhibit that housed all the concept art and the dev documents, but sadly they sold no such thing. So that was Final Fantasy IX 25th Anniversary, the exhibition. A mouthful to say, but I think you would be very pleased if you loved Final Fantasy IX. Again, my main concern was, how much of this stuff was brand new? If you've committed every piece of Final Fantasy IX media and art to memory, it might just be you looking at stuff you've already seen before. But I think the layout of the exhibit was artistic in and of itself. There's a few fun photo ops, and being able to see Minaba's dev documents is really special. It runs until December 7th, so you still have a bit of time. Check it out. Alright, that's it for the feature, so let's check out the news. I feel like we're a bit light on the news this time around. Pikachu Sweets and Ikebukuro is going to sell the Kyogre and Groudon donuts from the Pokemon Legends ZA DLC in December. There you go. The news segment isn't going to get better than that. We also got some new NSO games, including Battletoads and the Game Boy Kid Icarus. That's exciting. Metroid is coming out. Think about it. Sorry, kind of a weak news time of the year, even in Tokyo. The Game Awards is a few days away, so I think there will probably be a lot to talk about next time in terms of new game announcements. And the Tokyo Game Life Game of the Year Awards will also be next week, so look forward to that. This episode was quite long, so let's just go ahead and wrap it up. Thanks as always for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe to this podcast on your favorite app. Leave a 5-star review as well, it really helps with visibility. The podcast is also available on YouTube, so like and subscribe there as well. I'm on Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, Instagram. Just search for Tokyo Game Life or find the links in the podcast description. If you like the podcast, be sure to share it with your friends on social media. The next episode will be on December 14th, and it is the Game of the Year episode. See you next time. Matane!